Funding for this program is provided by Annenberg CPB to advance excellent teaching.
It was an oasis, a garden between two of God's rivers, a place of fantastic gods, sacred surrealism, and ruthless pragmatism. A place where we can find our origins, laws, trade, money, and bloodshed on a lavish scale. Mesopotamia, this time on the Western tradition.
And now UCLA Professor Eugen Weber's continuing journey through the history of Western civilization.
Now see if you can recognize this passage. And the Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man whom he had formed. And out of the ground made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant to the sight or good for food. And a river went out of Eden to water the garden, and from thence it was parted and became into 4 heads. The name of the first is Pison. The name of the second is Gihon. The name of the third river is Hiddekel. That it is which goeth towards the east of Assyria. We call it the Tigris. And the fourth river is Euphrates. Now, of course, this is a passage from the book of Genesis, and it reproduces the image of the garden, an oasis between God's third and fourth rivers, the garden where the first men lived with the animals in the midst of a generous nature that posed no problems yet. It was paradise. And paradise is another name for a garden. And this paradise was ancient Mesopotamia, the land between the rivers. But Mesopotamia and the lands around it, from the Black Sea to the Persian Gulf, from the Iranian plateau to the Mediterranean, were a paradise in the shadow of natural disasters, just as the Garden of Eden was paradise in the shadow of the fall. The region had torrential rains like these. The Egyptians talked about a Nile in the sky. It had hurricanes, terrible sandstorms, uncontrollable floods, as we know from the story of the Great Flood, which the Israelites got from a Babylonian epic. And when nature was making life hard and unpredictable, people were with fire and sword. The Nile Valley in Egypt was never a highway for invaders. The sea lay at one end, unorganized savages at the other, so Egypt was able to develop its civilization without continuous warfare. But the Tigris and the Euphrates are great natural highways, not only for trade, but also for the movement of armies and the migrations of peoples. And so the Mesopotamians were both soldiers and traders. Their realism, Their cruelty, their ruthlessness can be explained in part by their geographical circumstances, and so can their gods. Terrible, unpredictable, and likely to manifest